The hierarchy is going to contain every game object that you have in your scene. Now let's go ahead and create a couple of objects, that way we can see what we can do with the hierarchy as well. So the hierarchy tab, right below it there's a create. If you left click on it, you get a drop down and you'll notice that you have several options here. These options to create are also the same thing on the menu for game object create. So you'll notice you're going to get the same set of options there. The other thing you can do is right click inside of the hierarchy panel and you'll get the same set of options there. So 3 different ways to get to the same information, just whichever way you want to use for your workflow. I'm going to click on the create. We'll just go down to 3D object and click on cube. When you click on cube, it'll place it inside the hierarchy. You should also notice that over in your scene you have a cube here. If you haven't done anything into your scene, typically that means that the position over on your transform will show at 0, 0, 0. Let's go over to our hierarchy again. Let's go back to our create, and this time on the 3D objects, create a capsule. Now notice it creates it at the same spot right here. We have 3 different objects. You can left click and select each one of those. When it comes to using the hierarchy, you can also use the up and down arrow keys to navigate up and down through it. You can also use shift to select multi in a group, and you can use control to select individual or deselect individual. When you select an object, you can right click on the object. You'll notice the option you get is to copy, paste, rename, duplicate, and delete. And click off of that one. The other option inside the hierarchy is that you can actually create parented objects. So for instance, let's take the cube, left click and drag it on top of the capsule. You'll see the little different shape going around it. When you let go with your mouse, you notice now the capsule has an arrow pointing down, and then the cube is inset inside of the capsule. If you click on the arrow, you'll notice it goes up and down. It's parented now to the capsule. To see it parented to the capsule, if you go up right above hierarchy, you'll see the move tool. If you left click on the move tool, inside your scene you'll see the transform gizmo. We're going to just left click on any of the 3 arrows. It'll highlight yellow when you left click on it. You can just move your mouse forward and backward to drag it. So you'll notice now, because it's parented, it actually stays with it. To deparent, just left click and drag the cube down. When you drag it down, you'll notice that you drag it out of the parenting. If you click on the capsule again, inside the scene, left click and drag, you'll notice now that it moves by itself. That's going to be the basic features and properties you'll use for the hierarchy. Selecting objects, parenting objects together. The last thing that we'll look at is focusing on an object. When you have an object selected, you can actually double click. If you double click on the object in the hierarchy, it focuses in on the scene view. Now remember, if you're seeing this, you're in the game tab. Be sure you switch back to scene tab where you'll see it this way. If you click on any other object, it'll focus on the object you double click on. Alright, so that's going to be all the basic features of what the hierarchy system will do. Hopefully you feel comfortable with it. There's a lot of additional features, but it's things that we'll get into when we look at different components and how they work. One other one that I've just kind of noticed here is that you have the type for the sorting method inside of here, and you can do alphabetical sort or transform sort. Using Unity's GUI system, you use transform. Using just standard objects, you can always use the alphabetical. The toolbar found at the top here. We're going to go over this one, just take a basic look at what these tools do. To use them though, let's go ahead and go to our hierarchy and click on Create. Go down to the 3D object and choose Cube. Go back to the hierarchy, click Create again, go back down to 3D objects, click on Cube again. Now remember, to zoom into the object, you can double click on the cube that you want to focus on. Also, if you're in your scene, if I am in this scene, I can push F, and it'll have the same effect as double clicking. F is going to be focus. On the toolbar, you have pan. Pan is going to be the hand inside of here. You can left click and you can move your object around. You can move your scene around. Next to it is the move tool. Whatever object is selected in the hierarchy, you'll notice you have your transform gizmo. You can left click on an arrow and drag it the angle that you've selected, or you can click on the 2-axis point, the little square inside of there, and you can move it on 2-axis direction. If you left click on an object, whichever object is currently selected will show the gizmo that you have selected. If I go back to the tools, I'll see I have rotate. Rotate provides me a three circular shapes. I can rotate by left clicking on the lines that I see here. I can also, inside of here, left click and do a free rotate. If I go back up to my scale option, my scale tool right here, you have scale. Scale is going to allow you to grab the handles and scale the object back and forth, up and down. You also have a uniform scale. If you click on the center one here, you can left click and drag, and it's going to scale the object, whatever size it is, it's going to scale it uniformly, the same, up and down. You have the transform option, which is a 2D tool but also 3D tool. This is going to allow you to grab the edges, much like the Photoshop transform tool, and you can scale more specific to the direction you're looking at. You can also grab the corner and move them up and down that way as well. Next to that is the pivot. The pivot is going to be pivot or center. Center of object, so when I click on, we'll use the move tool so you can see it here. When I look at the center, this is going to be wherever my pivot point is. My pivot point coming from a 3D object may be in the bottom corner, or it may be over to the side. Unity allows you to choose the pivot of the imported model or just the center of the whole bounding box object. Next to it is your local and your global. Local is going to allow you to say, do you scale or rotate locally, individually, or do you rotate globally? For instance, if we were to select both of these, to select both, you can hold Control, left click on one, left click on the other. If we were to choose scale over here, if I click on scale and I have global, if I left click and drag up, notice they go together. They're scaling up and down almost as though they are connected in a hierarchy, parented. If we scale local, they're not going to move together, they're going to move individually. And then what we'll have with these, over to the side, we'll have the play button, the pause button, and the next frame button. You can click on play right now. Wherever your camera's in your scene currently pointing, it's going to turn on the game tab. It's going to show you from that camera perspective. If you click on the play button again, you'll unplay it. If you have the play button going and you click on the pause button, it's going to take you back to your scene, because typically pause means that you're wanting to look at something in the scene, so it'll get that started for you. Frame by frame allows you to see an animation one frame at a time, run through code one frame at a time. Alright. We'll go ahead and stop on that one. When you go all the way over to the side, you'll see layers. Layers is going to be just like, think of layers in Photoshop. It's things you can either see or not see, and it's going to be things that you're either locked or unlocked. And then the last one is going to be your option for your layouts, is how do you want to lay out the scene in terms of panels, so that if you're working for animations, you may want just the animation panel up. If you're working on particles, you may want the particle window up so you can see it. That's going to be all the elements currently on the toolbar. Unity is really good about keeping that very minimal and keeping it nice and elegant.